Hey everyone. One of the things I like most about Xbox Game Pass is the wide range of games on the service that I've never heard of before. It's a great way to experience new games, and one of those games that I recently tried is Brotato, and honestly, I can't stop playing it. If you haven't seen or heard about Brotato, it's an indie game where you need to survive waves and waves of enemies. The game is technically an arena shooter, although the actual gameplay that the player controls is essentially just a running and dodging game. The game is also a roguelite. While you will die a lot, you don't keep any of your upgrades for the next run. Instead, you unlock more characters, weapons, and items as rewards to use in future runs. The main aspect to the game that I can see people not enjoying is the actual gameplay itself. You do not need to do anything except for run around the map. The game auto fires for you. The game auto dodges for you. As you run over an item, you'll automatically pick it up without needing to hit a button. The game on its default settings is played with just the one joystick. Yes, you'll need a button to do things like select a weapon to buy from the store in between rounds, but during the actual waves of enemies, during combat, all you do is run around. The game takes care of everything else. Because of this, the first time I played it, I actually thought it was really funny to be a potato running around with just four shotguns floating around my head. But I also thought it was rather boring since I just used the one joystick to move. However, as the game goes on and the waves of enemies get more intense, the gameplay strategies start to shift. It becomes less of attacking, killing the enemies, and collecting the money, and becomes more of run away from the enemies, dodge the projectiles, and find the health drops. That shift in strategy completely changed the feel of the game. It becomes more of a survival game, almost like a bullet hell game where you need to constantly dodge attacks. No longer could I just run around the outside of the map staying away from the enemies. I needed to actively find open gaps and make a run for safety, like an NFL player breaking through the defense for a touchdown. Combining this new take on the strategy with my desire to know how many levels it took to beat a round made me come back for attempt after attempt. I was struggling to win with the default character on the easiest difficulty, and I was extremely curious how difficult the game would get on higher settings. However, once I beat it the first time, I was able to use those strategies across multiple attempts, and I've now won countless times with a multitude of characters. As you unlock more characters, you'll notice they all have different starting stats, which allows each run to feel different from the last. Some characters are really lucky, so you can get extra rare items in the store, or some characters can gain money extra fast. But while each character has something good, there's essentially always a trade off that the character is really bad at. Maybe they're really weak or have difficulty regenerating health. Each unique character combined with the items and weapons you purchase after each wave will completely change how the run goes. Sometimes you end up being able to overload the battlefield with turrets and landmines to help you out. Sometimes you end up being extremely fast and the enemies can never catch up to you, allowing you to always attack from a distance. Either way, considering the repetitive style of the game, each run attempt can feel extremely different, which helps the game from feeling stale. The game also has a tremendous amount of stats for you to focus on. You can overload certain ones if you want, or you can do your best to even them all out and be decent at everything. It's entirely up to the stat boosts and items you decide to pick. When I first started playing, I kept using ranged weapons as they allowed me to keep my distance and avoid being hit. Then, I started using melee weapons as they tend to have bonus characteristics, like being able to spawn turrets on the battlefield. And because the game has a tremendous amount of weapons, all with different stats and abilities, finding the right combination of weapons is key, as typically you can carry up to 6 different weapons each attempt. You can go 6 different ranged weapons, from pistols to flamethrowers, or you can do a run with nothing but 6 identical wooden sticks if you want. Aside from a ton of items and weapons to choose from, the game also has a decent amount of enemy types. While, for the most part, it doesn't really matter how many different types there are because the game auto fires, it's not like you need to know a certain enemy is weak to certain weapons or anything like that. You will need to be aware what is the best way to take care of the hordes, the elites, and the bosses that take place as you ramp up the difficulty. That being said, you technically don't even need to kill anything at all. All you need to do is run out the clock each round in order to move on. And that can actually be more difficult than you think, even though the waves typically last anywhere from 20 to 90 seconds. Way more often than I'd like to admit, I would be at 75% health or higher with 5 seconds left and managed to die because I just couldn't outrun them for those last 5 seconds, and it's possible to lose a ton of health in a very quick burst. You might think you're doing great, killing everything that comes close, but then one level has a ton of projectiles. You can't dodge them all, and you focused all your stat boosts on speed and not enough on armor, and you go down in seconds. It can actually be pretty shocking, but then that actually makes you want to give it just one more try over and over and over again. If you do manage to make it to the final wave, you'll see two options. Either wave 20, which you'll need to beat in order to have that run be considered a win and unlock the rewards at the end, or you can pick endless. I actually have never picked endless yet, and I'm still trying to unlock everything. So every time I get there, I want to beat the attempt and get my rewards. But I have to assume it is what it says, endless waves of enemies to see how long you can last. Aside from the gameplay, the game has decent visuals. They're a little simplistic, but it does the job. And honestly, I'd rather have these simple visuals if that means keeping the game running smooth. Because even on the hardest difficulty on the last levels, I never experienced any slowdown. The game never lagged or dropped frames, and if it did, it would be a near disaster since the game at that point becomes a pure reaction based game. And if it would mess with your reaction speed, then it would make the game essentially unfair. So I'm completely happy with this type of cartoony visual style if it means playing the game at a smooth frame rate. The game also has some catchy music, although it can get a little repetitive after multiple runs in a row. However, I found that this is a perfect multitasking game. I can play this with very low volume while listening to a podcast on my phone or watching a hockey game on my laptop. There's no character dialogue or important cutscenes that you need to focus your attention on, so listening to a podcast while playing is extremely easy. The only moments you'll need to read is when you're choosing stats or buying things from the store in between rounds, and you can take all the time you want in those moments. Now, if you think the game is a little too simplistic, there actually is an option where you can turn on manual aim, which basically turns the game into a twin stick shooter. This actually makes the game quite a lot more difficult and makes it essentially impossible for you to attack multiple directions at once, which is possible when auto aim is on. The one plus side is that if you ever let go of the right joystick, the game will automatically snap into work and begin auto aiming. So you can start using the manual aim and stop whenever you want, almost as if you're turning on and off cruise control, but you don't even need to hit a button to do it. Literally, just moving the right stick or letting go of it will activate and deactivate it. It works incredibly well. However, I think as you get deeper into an attempt, trying to use the manual aim will make it way too difficult and result in a lost run. All said, I think Brotato has a great gameplay loop. It continuously makes me want to start up another attempt right away. Every time I die, I feel like I know why. I didn't have enough armor, I wasn't fast enough, I didn't have enough ranged weapons, and because I feel like I can figure out why I lost, it makes me want to start another run knowing what I need to do differently. But it all comes down to the luck of the draw in terms of what items and stat boosts are available to me the next time around. I think the game knew what it wanted to be and did what it had to do in order to do it well. They leaned into the simplistic graphical style. They leaned into having a battlefield with no hazards for the player, as there's no water or sand traps to fall into. They leaned into having just the left joystick do all the combat gameplay in order to create a game that is well balanced with a ton of characters and weapons to keep it from feeling stale and extremely smooth gameplay, knowing that any sort of lag could be catastrophic to the reaction time for the player. If you enjoy the type of games that make you go, just one more try, then I think you'll absolutely like Brotato. Yes, my initial thoughts about the game was that it was a little too simple, but the amount of variables that are within each attempt add a ton of complexity that I didn't originally notice. And there we have my thoughts on Brotato, a game that I personally just cannot stop playing. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit the thumbs up. It really helps out a lot. And be sure to subscribe if you're new here. If you want to check out which 5 games I gave a second chance to and why, then be sure to click right here.